So we've done my Huckabee. I'm trying to decide if we have. Let's do this. I'm going to read my editorial. And I basically did this in the form of a letter to America. And I wrote this between midnight and 5 o'clock this morning. And this is going to be roughly as long as the average asshole of the week segment. So about 6 to 10 minutes. And I apologize if anyone feels I'm monopolizing, but I think
It's your
this
show,
needs.
man.
I think this needs to be said, and of course, you all are free to react. But I will begin. Dear America, I I have one cardinal rule when it comes to writing, be it fiction or nonfiction. That golden rule is not to write while angry. Tonight I feel compelled to break this rule. The time for calm, logical, rational thought has ended. The time for action and righteous fury is now. This will be the first of my Keith Olbermann-style editorials on this program. I pray that it will be my last, and that I will never feel the need to do something like this again. Normally we would do Asshole of the Week during this segment, but after the events of Friday, December 14th, 2012, I felt it was inappropriate and instead penned the editorial content you are about to hear. This could well be what finally gets on Newsbusters. To be frank, I don't give a fuck. This isn't about publicity for this program or us. This is about righting a horrible wrong in this country perpetuated by an insane gun culture. As I write this, 20 beautiful, precious children and 6 adults are dead. Their lives cut tragically short by a mad gunman. Over 100 rounds were fired from firearms a mentally ill 20-year-old man was able to access easily due to lax gun laws forced upon our country by bullies in the NRA through their lobbying in Washington. This is a horrible tragedy. Compounding this tragedy is the flocking of conservatives to America's airwaves to use this tragedy to advance their conservative agenda. Conservative Christians such as Brian Fisher and Mike Huckabee are using it to argue that this tragedy would have been prevented if only we indoctrinated our school children in their political ideology by forcing them to pray to Jehovah in public schools. The response of ALEC and Americans for Prosperity, tentacles of the dreaded Coctopus, was to call into a Michigan Governor Rick Snyder and demand he pass laws nullifying present laws that make schools a gun-free zone. And I'm sure NRA president, professional media whore, and insane conspiracist Wayne LaPierre will soon be hitting the news circuit, claiming that if only more guns were readily available, those 27 lives would not have been snuffed out. My prediction is that he will follow this up with his insane conspiracy theory that President Obama has a hidden gun-snatching agenda, proven by the fact that Obama has done nothing on the issue. Will the NRA have the common courtesy to wait to start harping about their pro-gun, pro-death agenda till the bodies are cold? Considering that other right-wing groups in this country couldn't, I doubt they will as well. The simple fact of the matter is that there are generally two entirely different reactions to tragedies such as this: the liberal reaction and the conservative reaction. Liberals typically react to such tragedy by asking questions. How could this happen? How can things such as this be prevented? The conservative reaction is different and generally something along the lines of, "Watch out! Them libs are coming for your guns!" and "It's not our fault!" accompanied by the usual blaming on Hollywood, liberals, and our culture. Contrary to LaPierre's insane and inane ramblings, liberals do not want to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. All we want, Mr. LaPierre, is to send our babies to school and not have to wonder whether they will be okay come the end of the day, or whether they will be the victims of another mass murderer enabled by the NRA to purchase guns and mass amounts of ammunition easily. The gun control debate in America is largely kabuki theater. There will be outrage, of course, and demands for hearings, and maybe even legislative proposals this time. But then the flying monkeys of the NRA and other such groups will come out and browbeat Republicans and moderate Democrats until the action stops. That is their modus operandi, to make questioning their doctrine difficult, if not impossible, and to destroy anyone who would dare question them. And then LaPierre will go before CPAC, smirk his arrogant smirk while crowing about the NRA's imagined victories, and tell the gullible conservative retards that liberals still want to take their guns away with a hidden agenda that only exists within the confines of his deranged mind. We will be told America doesn't have a gun problem, it has a culture problem. That we've lost our Judeo-Christian heritage, and because we don't force our children to pray to a certain invisible skyman, said invisible skyman has withdrawn his protection of our great nation. This is pure weapons-grade bullshitium. America does have a culture problem, this much is true, but it's not the culture problem conservatives claim it is. Our cultural problems stem from the fact that we have a gun subculture that runs amok in America, especially in the states that once made up the old Confederacy. Their goal is not to encourage debate or come up with solutions. In fact, it is the opposite. Their goal is to stifle debate and to shut down anyone who would dare question their dogma. If someone dares question it, they turn their sights to that person and destroy him or her. No doubt if there were conservatives paying attention now, what I am presently saying would draw their ire and get me on their radar. My only regret is that there aren't any conservatives here today. I would welcome their ire and hatred. Conservatives think of liberals as a bunch of pussies, and maybe that reputation is deserved to some extent. I, however, am not a pussy. I welcome the fight. And a note to conservatives, I won't stop until I either win or I die, and if it be the latter, so be it. I will drag you down to hell with me. In the 1950s, Senator Joseph McCarthy was able to ruin hundreds of lives on his anti-communist witch hunt that was built on lies. Finally, one brave man stood up to him and asked, "Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you no sense of decency?" It is time for Wayne LaPierre to experience a similar moment. Democratic senators should immediately issue a subpoena for his appearance before the appropriate Senate committees, and during these hearings he should be asked in no uncertain terms just how many innocents must be slaughtered upon the altar of his radical right-wing agenda before he will be satisfied. LaPierre must be asked clearly when enough will finally be enough, and he must not be allowed to leave until such time as he answers clearly. It is time to stand up to the bullying gun culture of America. It is time to say in one voice, enough. This time it cannot be kabuki theater. We must demand real change, and I believe I have a proposal to do so. President Obama should extend to Wayne LaPierre an invitation to come to the White House with a list of common-sense gun controls that his organization could support and would actively lobby Congress for. This would include what types of firearms to ban permanently, what sort of bullets they would be okay with banning, and what loopholes they would throw their weight behind closing. If they are willing to sit down and act like adults, we will listen, and we can work together to get something done and save our children. The one caveat for such a conversation, however, must be that any proposal to loosen existing gun laws, maintain the status quo, or doesn't constitute true action will be completely unacceptable. If they refuse to and continue acting like a bunch of children, the hammer should drop. Conservatives are as children. If they misbehave and refuse to adjust their behavior to meet the norms of our great society, they must be punished and be punished severely. Just as you would smack a misbehaving child on the bottom, we must now do the same with a petulant gun lobby that even now refuses to help and insists on making a bad situation worse by demanding more guns and easier access to them. Democrats should run... these discussions break down, Democrats should run in 2014 on several new planks in their platform regarding gun control. They should run on passing a comprehensive overhaul of our nation's gun laws that would bring America in line with the rest of the world. Step one in this should be stating clearly that any Democratic candidate refuses to sign on to this effort will receive no support from President Obama, the DNC, the DCCC, and the DSCC. In short, it needs to be said loud and clear that if you will not toe the party line in this issue, you will receive no help in your candidacy. You will be abandoned. We need to accept the fact that one of our greatest weaknesses is that we don't rigidly enforce our ideology in our party. Republicans do not tolerate dissent from the party line. Anyone who strays from it is punished or run out of the party. When it comes to protecting our precious babies, we should do no less. So I say it again. Any candidate for high office, be it Senate, House, President, or governorship, will not receive any help from the Democratic Party infrastructure if they refuse to support this proposed effort to revamp our nation's gun laws. We must speak in one loud voice. This is how the Republican Party does it. It's time to do the same. My proposed act is tentatively entitled the Sandy Hook Elementary School Gun Control Act of 2012 and has the following proposed provisions. First, a tax or surcharge of no less than $5 per bullet is to be levied on all purchase of ammunition. This will make it more difficult to purchase the massive amounts of ammunition these massacres require. If gun owners truly are concerned about their ability to hunt or protect their home, they do not need massive quantities of ammunition. And if this surcharge were there, they would be unable to keep ammunition for the most deadly of guns, such as assault weapons. It would be simply too expensive. They would think twice before taking a gun out and just shooting it willy-nilly for fun and games, no matter how safe it might seem to be. You can also bet hunters will be more careful and accurate with their shots when hunting game. Second, the gun show loophole must be completely closed. No one should be able to go to a gun show and purchase a firearm without a comprehensive background check. Third, strict licensing and insurance requirements for gun ownership must be put in place. If someone wants to own a car, they must prove they are capable of operating it properly, maintaining it, and they must have insurance for that car. Cars are not created for the sole purpose of destruction. Guns are. So why do we have stricter standards for car ownership? If you want to own a gun, you must be licensed. Your gun must be registered with the state and federal government, not so it can be seized, but so it can be tracked should be used in a crime. The government must pass strict record-keeping laws and stiff penalties, including jail time for people who would violate them. If a gun is sold, a record should be in a government database for for tracking of crimes. Sure, it may mean a gun owner has to answer some awkward questions should a gun they once owned is used to commit a crime. But if they follow the law, they will have nothing to fear. A law-abiding citizen should have no problem or reservations answering questions, provided they have the right priorities. Fourth, a massive tax or surcharge on all gun sales in all states to go directly to the federal government to fund gun control initiatives should be levied. The states with the most guns have the most problems and the most shootings, and therefore should be contributing the most to getting our house in order. This operates on a similar idea to my first proposal. By making it more expensive to buy and own a firearm, we will in essence lessen the number of guns on our streets. With the money received from states via this tax or surcharge, the government can fund initiatives to put more cops on the beat and make our schools safer. Fifth, there must be a permanent and irrevocable ban on certain kinds of firearms and ammunition. Fully automatic weapons capable of shooting many rounds per minute must be banned. This extends to assault weapons and certain ammunition, such as cop killer bullets as well. Other items that should be subject to this aforementioned permanent and irrevocable ban would be high-capacity clips, such as banana clips or barrel clips. No more bans that have to be renewed every 5, 10, or 20 years. Any such ban attached to this proposed legislation must be permanent to prevent it from becoming a political football or convenient hostage for the GOP to take every few years in an attempt to get concessions out of a Democratic president. If courts continue to not apply the law as constitutionally required, provision could be added stripping state and federal courts of their authority to hear cases regarding these laws. If petulant children do not behave as they are expected to, their toys are taken away. So too can we take away the jurisdiction of an unruly court. If a court insists on putting the interests of the gun lobby above the interests of we the people, then their jurisdiction over gun rights cases can be revoked until such time as their philosophy is more in line with that of the American people. When it is, their jurisdiction can be restored on the condition that it can and will be revoked again if they do not behave like good little children and do as expected. Finally, the NRA should be designated as a domestic terrorism group and have their assets seized. The fact of the matter is that by fighting to loosen restrictions, preserve gaping loopholes in our laws, and allow reasonable gun control legislation to either lapse or be voted down, they enable these acts of domestic terrorism. Under the USA Patriot Act, an act conservatives are very fond of, people have been found to be guilty of domestic terrorism for lesser acts. The NRA should be made an example of, and Wayne LaPierre should be frog-marched to jail. Not the cushy sort of federal prison that white-collar crooks go, but the horrible jail that our worst criminals are subjected to. Perhaps a nice military brig. Or Gitmo. Once comprehensive gun control is passed and our country's laws are brought up to speed with the rest of the civilized world, we have to begin fixing our country's jurisprudence. Joseph Goebbels, Hitler's propaganda man, talked about the big lie, saying that if you repeated a lie enough, it would become the truth. This has happened in our American society. The modern big lie in our legal arena is this concept that there is an individual right to gun ownership in the Second Amendment. There is not. It directly references a, quote, well-regulated militia, not a bunch of drunk, retarded schmucks still wanting to fight the Civil War and feeling the need to compensate for the size of their pitifully small penises and an inability to sexually please their spouses by stockpiling massive amounts of big guns. President Obama and all future Democratic presidents should commit to only appointing federal judges who are committed to overturning all decisions finding an individual right to own a firearm in the Constitution. It does not exist. We should not be arguing against a lie perpetrated by the NRA. As long as this absurd idea that there is such a right, we will still see tragedies such as the Sandy Hook Massacre unfold. Until such time as we reverse all these horrible decisions, people such as Adam Lanza will be able to perform their horrible acts because owning a gun is seen as an inalienable right, not the privilege it is. If ownership is a right, it can't be regulated, which is the main reason why the NRA and other gun groups have pushed for it for so long. So this concept, this myth, this big lie must be torn out by its roots from American legal jurisprudence. Some people may argue that some of my proposals, particularly some of my proposed gun control legislation, is a bit extreme. Perhaps before you make such a judgment, you should ask one of the parents of those 20 precious little babies if they feel the same. A parent of one of those precious lives sacrificed upon the altar of Wayne LaPierre's agenda of paranoia, hate, and unchecked violence in this country. Signed, Adam Dale Hebert, host, executive producer, and head writer of Mic Check Radio. And that's that.
All right, now you can take a breath.
Well done.
We'll be back. I guess we'll be back with reaction from Wes, who is probably seething at some of my proposals.
I have some things to say, but we can get to that. That's fine.
Well, yes. Let's take our break because we are actually quite late. So we're gonna do a fan favorite now. Dreams Disco Nights mix from Nights into Dreams. Damn, I got the hiccup. Something fierce. We'll be right back after this on Mic Check Radio with Adam Hebert.
And we are at an impasse.
I'm afraid so. I can't compete with you physically, and you're no match for my brains.
You're that smart.
Let me put it this way. Have you ever heard of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates?
Adam Hebert.
Yes?
Morons.
You're listening to Adam Hebert and Mic Check Radio.